So imagine there I was, I'm a little boy. I grew up in Kansas, which is the heart of the Midwest in the United States. Very religious community, pretty conservative community. And I used to sneak downstairs late on Friday nights to watch what we called the creature feature. Ours was called the Friday Nightmare, hosted by a woman called Crematia Mortem. And she would host and introduce us to, and then do little bits in between about with all the classic horror cinema. So the Universal Pictures movies, Dracula, Frankenstein, my favorites, Dracula, The Invisible Man, Jekyll. I mean, all of the things that we knew as kids, those iconic images, I was just hypnotized by in film. And then over the subsequent years, had been hooked ever since. So then I fell in love with all of the Hammer versions of Dracula, as well as the subsequent adaptations, as well as classic German variations on the Dracula cinematic story. So as horror continued to play such an important role in my life as a storyteller, and as I myself was writing my own films and stories and comic books about monsters, and starting to wrestle with bigger ideas about my own mortality and my own struggles with addiction, all the way to mental illness, all the way to the fears that we all face collectively and as individuals, I found that the genre space, and horror in particular, is such an incredible way to explore and wrestle with those ideas. And Dracula, the character, the figure, the representation of all the horror that it is, from Stoker to today, it continues to strike people in the heart because it represents our fear of the end and the seductiveness of being able to live forever. And ultimately, in this story, we deal with a confrontation where the need, the thirst, the hunger for that Dracula has turned into a bestial kind of predatory horror. And so I read the script. I desperately wanted to be a part of the film. I was fortunate enough to be cast in it. And I stepped foot in Germany, in Babelsberg Studios, on the set of a Dracula picture, a Universal Studios Dracula picture. And I got tears in my eyes. I'll never forget. I was by myself, and I had gone to a fitting, and I'd seen Carlo and the rest of the amazing wardrobe team's versions of what I would look like, and I'd seen glimpses of André's shots and lists and images, and then I was on set, and I was about to get a tour of our ship, and I was very moved, and yeah, it's a surreal thing. Wojchek for me was a character unlike anything I'd ever gotten to play before, and I cared deeply for him as I was first reading the script, and I felt like I knew and understood what the engine was inside of him, because there is a deep longing and sadness in Wojchek for belonging and for purpose, and I believe that he was a person who had no real family to speak of, and found the family of the crew and the boat at a very young age, and has spent the totality of his life at sea. And I loved that André was so supportive of this instinct that I had about the character, that the ship is so important to Wojchek that it is a person to him. It is more than a home to him. It is everything to him. And so I wanted to constantly be tending to her in a way that you would a person or a relationship that you cared very deeply for. I believed instinctively upon reading the script and building the character that when we would come into port after a long trip at sea and everyone would go to have a good meal or go out to celebrate or get drunk or go to a show, I would stay on board, constantly tending to all the little repairs and details and improvements that I could upon this ship. I love the idea that a character could love something this much, and when it becomes threatened, have to raise stakes, to the point of not just survival for myself, but for this thing that to me represents all that matters in life, as well as my crew. Because the film begins, and here's my hero. Here is the person who's given me this life, my captain, who I've been sailing under now for a long time. And he's telling me, look, this is my last journey. I am not going to be a captain after we get to London. He tells me this. You are going to be the captain. He's giving me the greatest honor I could possibly ever ask for. And I'm so proud. Like, my whole life has been leading to this moment, and it's a dream I never thought I would achieve. And within one day, it becomes threatened as people start disappearing, and we start to recognize that there is a force on board that's preying upon not only my fellow sailors, but also the ship itself. And man, those are great gifts as an actor. That's something that you can really, for lack of a better phrase, sink your teeth into. Sure, I knew going into this that Wojchek moved and existed in space quite differently than I do as David. I'm an incredibly expressive person. I use my hands. I gesture a lot. I am fairly verbose, if not ever eloquent. And Wojchek is just a man of so few words. And his presence, because of the years of working on the deck of a ship and the way that he's had to labor, it's hard work living on a boat and being a sailor, had caused his body to become a pretty incredible machine. And so I worked out quite a bit. I gained quite a bit of weight. I tried to bulk up on muscle mass. And I then started to work with this incredible dialect coach, who became a dear friend, my friend Marcel, who's in Poland, in Krakow, and they and I would meet almost every day to help me go through my lines and make sure I was getting my Polish right. And then you just find the way that you move in space, the way that he walks, the way that he stands, the way that he thinks, the way that his eyes move when he's thinking. And I can feel it now starting to come back into my body. It's weird. I haven't been there for such a long time, but it was intense. It required a lot, but it was great. I loved every second of that part of the work. Absolutely. So here comes Clemens, this guy who is an outsider. He's educated, and it's tricky because Wojciech is in charge of helping to crew up his ship for this journey. The captain has put me in charge of crewing up this ship, and I want the best sailors, the most experienced, the most rugged. Clemens has soft hands. He's also non-white, and at that time, as it is today, obviously, racism is a massive, disease in our world. But imagine for a guy like Wojciech, who has an all-white crew and is used to being the boss of people, and having a guy who's not white, who's smarter than me, who's more educated than me. And the worst thing about it, my captain, my hero, the guy whose opinion that matters the most to me, really likes this guy. And they can have these really sophisticated conversations that I don't get to participate in. So what was really cool about that as an actor and as a character is it motivated this distrust of Clemens, this dislike of Clemens. I wanted Clemens to fail. I wanted to be, making sure that he knew that I was in charge. And Corey Hawkins, who brings Clemens to life, does such a phenomenal job with him that over the course of the story, not only do I start to realize that I am completely wrong about this guy, that he does have answers and he is the person that I can look to, I become dependent upon him. And what a cool journey that is to take as an actor and get to bring that to life and hopefully demonstrate, to anyone watching the story unfold, what a foolish thing it is to make judgments about people based upon things like that and not giving them a chance. Because perhaps maybe if Wojciech had listened to Clemens earlier, things might not have gone the way that they do.